Good afternoon. Reverend J. Wolin, minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Quad Cities. First, a great thanks to the Coleman Harris Trio. Really fantastic. Thank you for being here today. A human life is sacred. It is sacred in its being born. It is sacred in its living. And it is sacred in its dying. We've come together today to remember Sam Kresse, to celebrate his life, and to mourn his death. It's a time to remember the person that he was, the life he lived, and the impact that his life had on us and the world. We will share some music, as we already have, and some more, some readings, and some of our remembrances. Sam was born on March 13th, 1930 in Muscatine and died Friday, April 7th. Family members left to honor his memory include his wife of over 50 years, Elaine, 5 sons, Scott, his wife Bonnie, Bill, his wife Amy, Brad, Brian, and Sam and his wife Dawn, as well as numerous grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We would be here forever if I named all of them. He was preceded in death by his parents, Chester and Beulah Kresse, his sister Janet, and 2 nephews and a great-granddaughter. As the poet Walt Whitman wrote, "Will you seek afar off? You surely come back at last, and the things best known to you finding the best or as good as the best, and folks nearest to you finding the sweetest, strongest, lovingest, happiest knowledge. Not in another place, not in another time, not for another hour, but in this hour. By our presence here today, this hour, we come to pay tribute to the memory of one to whom was an important part of your life. May our coming together bring each of us and each other comfort in the long days ahead. Please join me in lighting the chalice, the words of which are in your order. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to remember. I, of course, didn't know Sam as intimately as most of you. Those of you, at least if you knew him as I did, he was a quiet man. He was always respectful, always. But even trying to draw him into conversations sometimes would only get me a short response. When I would meet with him, I always knew when the conversation was done, because he would always look at me and say, "Good talk, Reverend." He was a straight shooter. That's what I liked most about him. And so in such cases, obviously just referring to the family, but also looking at the acts of a person's life, he was a person of commitment and service who knew how to enjoy his life. He was married for over 50 years, and if I know nothing else about Sam, that tells me something about him. He served his country, he served his community, and he loved his family. Teaching was in his blood. Sam's grandmother was a teacher, and his mother was a teacher. Sam impacted the lives of many, many young people. He developed programs that were focused on what the needs of the individual students were. In fact, Elaine tells me they received a card from one of his students from 1979 remembering Sam. So let that be a reminder to all of us of the impact that we can have on others over time. We don't even realize often the impact we have on others. Sam took joy in the various outings that he took these students on, and in caring about and seeing these students learn when many others had given up on them. Sam was one who never gave up. I, of course, knew him only in his older years, and one thing I know is that he enjoyed watching his sports teams. I never saw someone so excited, at least in our congregation, when we moved to an earlier service on Sunday morning so that he could make it home in time for the Bears games. He was really genuinely excited about that. He spoke often to me of the great joy he had in spending time with his children and grandchildren. And when I would stop over his house, he was invariably playing cards with friends. He accepted life for what it provided, and in return, he provided a calm, steadfast, witty love to those around him. He will be missed. One of the books that Sam had that I really think depicted his theology as I was talking with Elaine was this book, Granddad's Prayers of the Earth, which I know he had bought and made an inscription and given to his grandchildren. I just want to read a short passage of it. "Bending down to smell a flower can be a prayer," said my granddad. "Quietly watching the sunrise, feeling the slow turning of the earth, and saying hello to a new day is one of the oldest prayers. Standing in snowy woods on a winter day and watching your breath become a part of the breath of the world is a way to pray. Making music or painting a picture can be a prayer. Holding hands around the table with family and friends, remembering all that holds us together and giving thanks is one of the greatest prayers. Sometimes," said Granddad, "people pray when they are sad or sick or lonely or have a problem too big to carry by themselves. They may say words they have learned from their fathers or mothers or granddads or great-grandmothers, but often they must find their own words. The important thing to remember is that the words will always be right if they are real and true and come from the heart." And so now, as is the tradition for celebration of life services in Unitarian Universalist congregations, I invite up Scott Kresse, who will share, and then after that we invite other family members and friends to share short remembrances of Sam.
Should I come up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So when I was in high school, towards the last year in high school, my parents decided to buy a farmstead out by Walcott. My father wanted to be a gentleman farmer. And one of the great stories is we had a cow, or a steer actually, named appropriately Hamburger, if you know what I mean, and needed to have, obviously, hay over the winter. So we bought several loads of hay from my cousins. Actually, my cousins are over here. As it turns out, the hay field was right across from my grandparents' house at the time, which we can all remember. So it was kind of cool. But we had an old truck at the time, and we piled, this is back when people actually baled hay. I don't know if any of you remember, but it was only about that long as opposed to the mounds they do now. And so we piled this up and about like 3 or 4 high above the cab of the pickup truck. And I was assigned to drive it back to the house. So I started out, and I learned something that day. When you turn a heavy load that's a little precarious, it falls over. And so it literally dumped half the load onto the ground to the right of the vehicle at the time. And I remember distinctly my father walking over, looking at it, looking at me and saying, "See you back at the house." That's true. Also later that year, somehow we came up with the idea he and I would become partners in growing and butchering and selling some chickens. So we got about 100, 125 pullets, as I recall, and grew them. It was great. And then it came time to do the thing that has to be done to make chicken available to eat, if you know what I mean. So we did the deed, and I realized that this was a very unpleasant activity. We had a little money. It was nice to have it as a 16, 17-year-old. I actually derived income from it. It was a good thing. But we decided to do another batch, and I told him at the time, I said, please, I do not want to do this butchery. I'm just sorry, not do it. So he looked at me and he said, figure it out. So I did. In the days before the internet, you actually had to use things like the phone book to find people that would do these sorts of things for you. And sure enough, after many calls and a bit of driving around the county, I found some people that would do the deed for us in such a manner as to, be profitable still for us. And Father did not have a problem with that. So I learned from that exercise that some things other people are good for. And as my wife will tell you, I've held to that ever since. So finally, the last story about the farm has to do with some sheep. You remember the sheep? So he got the idea. This place had a front yard that was kind of a decrepit apple orchard. And so I think he got a few sheep, and his idea was to, I think, not have to mow underneath the apple orchard. It was just kind of catch sheep. The problem was, my father wasn't really good at some of the harder things about farming, like fencing. Really difficult. That's a lot of work. So these damned sheep kept getting out of the pen constantly. Half the summer, I felt, we were wandering around North Scott County, finding these stupid sheep, rounding them up and putting them back in the pen. It was literally ridiculous. But all of these farm exercises, plus working with my cousins a little bit, taught me a really basic lesson. I joined the Air Force, learned how to work on computers, and have worked in nice, cool, clean, air-conditioned computer rooms ever since. Thank you.
We now invite anybody else who would like to come up and share a memory.
I'll follow Scott because I'm going to talk about the Sam the farmer. So in the mid-1970s, we formed a partnership with Denny Hoffnagel and Sam. We bought a farm up by Iowa City, right outside, actually between Iowa City and West Branch. So we were going to be gentlemen farmers. Now, I grew up most of the time on a farm. Sam grew up in Davenport. Denny grew up in downtown Chicago. So we had a lot of experience. We actually farmed this for about probably 10 years. Most people told us that partnerships don't work. You'll be dissolving this partnership before long. So we worked the farm for about 10 years, maybe less. But our partnership itself lasted about 20 years. And so my main thing is that we got along. Sam got along with us fine. I think Denny would attest to that. And so when we finally resolved this, then we went back to some of the memories that we had from the operation. So one thing I want to leave with you is that we had one motto, and I'm sure Denny remembers this, and Elaine probably does as well. If you don't like how it's done, you have to do it yourself. So if the corn rows were not straight, you took over the planet. Thank you.
Words to live by.
no need to be shy. This may not be traditional in other denominations, but it is traditional here to come up and share memories. So if there's anybody else who would like to, please come up. Going once. Going twice. Then it'll be time for some more music, and some more beautiful music from the Golden Harris Now invite up Shelley Moore Guy to read a poem written by Elaine Kresse.
Good afternoon. I'm honored to share Elaine's poetry for Sam. Thank you. I made you because to you, I'm 20 years old, a sexy broad. Who else would recognize my intelligence, wit, and poetic gifts? I am so lucky to have such a good-looking husband with bad eyesight, a man with such creative talent who appreciates mine. To my knight in frowning armor. This is a poem to my husband, Sam, who never fails to amaze me. whose clear blue eyes have glazed in boredom and disdain before countless speakers and myself. Wheeze, cough, sniff, rub your eyes, looking away like a caged animal waiting for the unguarded door. How? What do you think, I ask? You answer, how do I know? Or, it can't be done. After I research the answer, you say, everybody knows that. I didn't. How did you? But given cause on stage in class, or as group leader, you explain how much you know. Called to aid a friend in need, a parent or relative, you stay for hours unmindful of the cage door, holding a tiny child in your 200-plus pound frame. You cradle and protect from the world, shelter your wife, dance to her drummer. You're soft, Sam Kresse. What goes through your mind as you sit for the world to see, bored, disdaining? Are you afraid the world will see how vulnerable you really are? We all know how much you love us. We've all seen you smile. We know you, Sam Kresse. There is no door. You think you're out the cage door, Sam. You're not. The last time I used you as a sounding board, I said, you don't know how glad I am to have you to sound off to. You said, that's all right. I don't listen. You think you fooled anyone, tough guy. Even the CNAs and nurses you called trouble told me you were their lovable bear. A lovable bear who even today knew how to get what he wanted, my poetry and jazz. And listening or not, I'm still talking to you. What do you think? I suppose everybody knows that. I didn't.
All right, so this is going to be really short. And hopefully this works correctly. But this is my father singing. You love I suppose I love you too. That's it? Honestly, in the 2 weeks of planning for today, I knew I wouldn't be able to speak. And so going over things, we agreed on that amount rather than the entire scratched up recording, and especially not the part with me singing afterwards.
So now, I would like us to, in this benediction, a call and response. After I say a line, I would like you to respond, we remember him. Let's just try that. We remember him. At the rising of the sun and its going down. We remember him. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter. We remember him. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring. We remember him. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer. We remember him. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn. We remember him. At the beginning of the year and when it ends. We remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart. We remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make. We remember him. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us, and we remember him. I now invite you to join me in extinguishing the chalice with the words that are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the memories we share. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Jay, what did you forget?
What did I forget? What did
Did you invite people downstairs?
Oh! I did not. I was going to eat all the pizza myself. No! Sorry. Oh, my plan just went to shreds. Okay, no. Obviously, everybody, after we hear another piece of wonderful music from the Coleman Harris trio, we invite you to come downstairs. I know there will be pizza and other snacks and goodies and drinks. So please join us, and we will have maybe more personal remembrances to share with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This is overwhelming attendance, but the pizza is not here yet. So Coleman, would you play another piece, Due to an unfortunate oversight, the name of one of our family members got omitted from Sam's obituary, and that's Teresa, the mother of two of his grandsons, Malcolm and Dax. So please remember her in your condolences today as well. Thank you.
And we'll be going downstairs to the social hall. There's an elevator soon, right by the front entryway to the building if you need an elevator, or there are 2 sets of steps as well. Please go forth.
Thank you.